What's up, guys? Welcome to week number 19 of my 2018 training. Couple of wins, couple of changes for training starting this week. For the max effort upper day, decided to keep working on the axle bar since I had some good results with that on the floor press variation last week. Was able to work up to 335 for 2. The original plan was to take just a really light reverse band. These are rigged up to where they're not really taking a whole lot off of the bottom at all, maybe at most 20 pounds or something like that, but it's very minimal. So the original plan was to work up using a light reverse band on the axle bar with a full range of motion. That didn't feel too hot once I got to 255, so I decided to try throwing on a little bit of support. So initially used the Titan Ram, but that thing is just way too much carryover. I couldn't get the bar to my chest even with the 3 plates here, so it's pretty much just hard stopping at like an inch or two, at like 2 inches off the chest, and just felt kind of useless. So I decided to throw on the slingshot instead, and actually that felt really good. It didn't change my bench groove at all. I was able to bring it all the way down to the chest without any major discomfort, and then from there basically kept working up into a top set of 405 for 5, which felt really good. All these moved really well. As you can see, I'm doing a good job of driving from the triceps instead of shooting the bar back over the shoulders, which is still a newer bar path for me, but felt strong, and I have a pretty good alarm as to whether or not I'm in the right position, because it can hurt if I get out of a good groove, and as long as I stay where I need to be, everything feels just fine. So took triples at 315, 345, 375, and then took this top set with 405 and felt good enough to take that for a set of 5. So this was actually, I would say, the best of the work sets that I did on that day. But I felt like by the time that I got done with the set of 5, I probably could have hit another 2 or 3 reps, which is pretty good, all considering my best on just a regular straight bar and a slingshot is 405 for 8. So strength-wise, so long as everything is not uncomfortable, I'm starting to catch back up to where I was. Obviously, I need to bring my full raw bench up, but if I'm able to now do full range of motion work with the slingshot on, this adds a lot of options for me as far as how to work the different variations. So what I will probably do is this next heavy bench day, I might stay in the slingshot, but try it just with the regular straight bar to see if there's any pain with that, or if it's just the combination of being on the axle bar and the position that puts me in. But I have some new things to play around with as far as being able to train around some of that discomfort. So that was a pretty positive day. The max effort lower day here, a little bit less so, but I believe this was the day after Cinco de Mayo, so I was pretty decently hungover. At least I didn't feel like I was at first until I started lifting, and then it became pretty apparent that I made bad decisions, and I'm over 30. You can do one of those things, you can't do both. So this ended up being kind of like a little bit of a deload day. One of the ideas that we got from Matt Wenning back when we went to the seminar was using the axle bar as a way of forcing the training load to be lighter. So it's kind of like a deload, but kind of not. So I ended up just working the Zercher squats that you saw on the bamboo bar. Those felt like shit. And then worked with the axle bar here, and these actually felt pretty good, all considering. Ended up working up to 405 for a triple, 425 for a double after that. The difficult part of this lift is not necessarily the grip, for me at least, because I've got relatively big hands, so that part isn't too awkward. It's more so the fact that you can't pull explosively on the axle bar because of the grip, so you have to pull a little bit slower, otherwise if you yank on it too much, you'll rip it right out of your hands. Also with the bar, the axle I'm using is 2.5 inches thick. That keeps the weight pushed out a little bit over the toes more, so the bar path is a little bit different, pulling on the axle bar as well. So fun variation. I can see how this would be something to work in maybe a little bit more frequently. I've not honestly pulled on the axle for a lot of years. I've just used it for pressing or for other random things, but I'll probably use this a little bit more often just because it was a fun variation to do and it was difficult, so why not? But everything otherwise felt okay. We ended up doing a bunch of prowler sprints after this axle work here. That will be something that stays in rotation going forward, especially for the next month while I'm continuing to cut. I want to have it to where I'm doing some kind of conditioning work on each of my 4 main training days, and then the days in between will just be like some walking or just dragging a sled light for something like a mile. It'll be more of a distance goal. So that's kind of what happened. This week also starts off a brand new dynamic effort wave for both upper and lower. One of the things that I'll be doing differently on the upper body dynamic day is, rather than just ramping up with the amount of work sets, because I did end up working up to the 20 sets of 3 for the speed work, followed by the 4x10s. Now that I've kind of built up some volume tolerance for my bench training, I'm going to keep that at 15 sets and maybe wave it between 12 and 15 triples on this day. For the first workout, which is what you're seeing here, I went 15 triples back to the double red mini bands. All of those felt really good. My touch point is good, yada yada yada. What I'll be doing going forward is, over the next 2 weeks, rather than just staying the same weight and adding sets or adding necessarily plate weight, I'm going to add accommodating resistance. So week 1 will be 15 triples against the red minis. Week 2, I'm going to add a chain per side. Week 3, I'm going to add a chain again. And the goal is to maintain the same type of bar speed that I have with just the mini bands as I add each level of accommodating resistance. So the weight will actually increase and wave over the next 3 weeks, unlike the last 2 months or so worth of speed workout. So that will be a change. I'm also incorporating some single arm stability work on this day as well. So on the speed upper day, I'll be still doing the main speed work. I'll still be doing a heavy tricep. But as I get down the line with the conditioning work, I'm going to be adding in some sledgehammer swings, and then variations like bottom up kettlebell pressing, waiter walks, things like that. That way I'm starting to incorporate some single arm stability work, but doing it in a way that I was doing before, where I incorporate it with the conditioning. So that will help make my prehab exercises a little bit more fun. It helps me up my conditioning work from just the 2 workouts I was doing to now 4, 2 upper, 2 lower, and then it consolidates the stressors by putting those on the training days rather than in between them. With regard to the speed day on the lower body, I'm going to be focusing also on stability. Obviously, my biggest glaring weak point is I have an unstable, particularly unstable right hip and left shoulder. So kind of starting to do some work for that oblique sling. So on the speed lower day, everything is going to be single leg and stability focused. The warm up, I switched to being single leg reverse hypers, single leg curls, and a belt squat. My main variations will be, for the first 3 weeks, a hip airplane, which you're seeing here. I definitely suck on the right side, which is the side where I have the collapsed ankle as well. But supersetting hip circle or hip airplane with the stagger stance RDLs that I've been using as an accessory movement for the last couple of weeks. I superset triple on the airplane, triple on the RDL, did 8 sets of 3 on those with relatively minimal rest between those. After that, worked some heavy front squat holds, superset those with some side planks, and then I think calf raises or something like that. I forget the third movement. But things that are still single leg and stability focused. And then afterwards went outside and for the conditioning work did some single arm farmer carries, superset with this kind of offset sled drag variation I did, where I hold this, I'm doing a backwards walk, but just holding the sled strap in one hand, so that way there's an element of anti-rotation for that as well. So as I progressed through the sets of the hip airplanes, they actually got a lot easier to do. I wasn't able to complete all 3 reps on that right side for probably the first 5 or 6 sets, and by the time I got to that last 2 or 3 sets, I was actually able to do them on the right side and was able to feel the glute and everything firing all the way through. So my plan is to run 3 weeks worth of hip airplanes, and then maybe turn that into either an isometric hold in kind of a lunge position, or maybe like a reverse lunge where I'm stepping back and sitting into a hip to load it that way. But I want to have basically 3 weeks of just stability and another 3 weeks of progressing that stimulus to where it's some kind of a single leg balancing, and then to maybe full on like split squat or something like that, and then have that hopefully turn into like a walking lunge. So it's really taken that speed day, and rather than focusing on trying to become more explosive and faster in my unstable position, really just attacking that instability on its own day and making everything single leg. So hopefully by the time that I do that, some of those issues have resolved themselves, and then things like the walking lunge to RDL or like a hip airplane, those become more just gateway movements for me that I use to prep for training rather than use them as a main training movement. So we'll see how that works over the next couple of weeks, but that's kind of what I'm thinking for this next dynamic wave. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like it, subscribe to the channel. As always, be sure to check out the gym's website at savagegym.com. Follow us on social, do all the usual shit, and I will talk to you next week.